Japan looks like a country that has everything figured out. Clean streets, safe cities, world-class transit, and a culture built around order. But for a growing number of people living there, Japan isn't the dream anymore. It's a monthly math problem you can't solve. In Tokyo's 23 wards, the average price of a new condominium has stayed above 100 million yen for 3 straight years. In 2025, it jumped again, up 21.8% year-on-year, to about 136.1 million yen. In the 6 core wards, the average was roughly 195 million yen. That's not a lifestyle upgrade, that's a wall. And it's not just buyers. Renting is turning into its own trap. Market guides estimate that a small 1R or 1K apartment for a single person averages around 96,000 yen per month across Tokyo's 23 wards. A family-sized 2 LDK to 3 LDK averages roughly 231,700 yen per month. Now stack that against what people actually earn. Japan's total cash earnings rose in 2025, but real wages, after inflation, fell by about 1.3% and were negative every single month of the year. In other words, more yen in your paycheck, less life in your wallet. Meanwhile, prices didn't wait. Japan's core inflation measure, consumer prices excluding fresh food, stayed above the Bank of Japan's 2% target in the post-pandemic period. In 2025, it ran in the low 3% range on average. Food, electricity, commuting, childcare, every category creeps up. But the average household doesn't creep up with it. So how did one of the most efficient societies on Earth become a place where living decently feels impossible? It's not one problem, it's a chain reaction. A housing market splitting into owners and permanent renters. A wage system that can't outrun inflation. And a new pressure point Japan rarely admits out loud. Because the squeeze isn't only coming from demographics or lazy young people. A huge part of the pressure is external. In 2025, Japan welcomed a record 42.7 million international visitors, who spent about 9.5 trillion yen. For the tourism economy, that's a jackpot. For locals in the hottest cities, it can feel like a surge of purchasing power entering from outside the wage system. This is how living in Japan is becoming impossible. And once you see the numbers behind the illusion, the question changes from, why is it so hard, to, who is Japan being built for now? To understand the modern squeeze, you have to rewind. Japan didn't suddenly become unaffordable. It slowly rebuilt itself into a high-cost machine that assumes people will simply endure. For decades, Japan was defined by low inflation and stagnant prices. That sounds comforting, until you realize it came with stagnant wages. When your pay barely moves for years, even a modest burst of inflation hits like a tax. And that's exactly what happened. By 2025, consumer prices had risen enough that real wages were falling month after month, even though nominal earnings were up. The government and major corporations point to annual wage negotiations and headline pay hikes. But the lived reality is harsher. Households are paying today's prices with yesterday's wage structure. Then comes the housing shock. Construction costs climbed, driven by labor shortages, higher material costs, and an industry that cannot scale quickly in the places people actually want to live. In central Tokyo, the average price per square meter for new condominiums reached roughly 1.88 million yen by the third quarter of 2025. That's about 10% higher than 2024. When each square meter costs more than many people earn in a week, saving up becomes a joke. And here's the twist. Japan has empty homes. Nationally, there are millions of vacant houses, especially outside the largest job centers. But they don't solve Tokyo's problem, because the jobs aren't in the empty towns. Demand is concentrated in a few megacities, and those megacities have limited land, complex planning constraints, and intense competition for well-located units. So scarcity becomes selective and brutally expensive. Now layer in a second market, the the global yen discount. Since 2019, the yen has been far weaker, moving from around 110 yen per dollar to roughly 150 yen per dollar through 2025. For many visitors, Japan became cheap. For locals, imports, energy, food inputs, consumer goods became more expensive. The same weak currency that fills planes to Tokyo and Kyoto also quietly raises the cost of daily life. That's why the crisis doesn't feel like a single catastrophe. It feels like pressure from every direction. Higher rents, higher groceries, higher utilities, and paychecks that don't reclaim lost ground. When a country is this tight, even small shocks become lethal. A medical bill, a broken appliance, a job transfer. One surprise can push a household from stable to done. Japan still looks orderly on the surface, but underneath, the margin of safety is shrinking. Housing and wages are only the first layer. A big reason Japan is starting to feel unlivable is that the country is being priced by two different audiences at the same time. Locals earning in yen, and outsiders spending stronger currencies. Look at what record tourism does to a tight city. When 42.7 million visitors arrive in a single year, demand for beds, trains, restaurants, and authentic neighborhoods doesn't just rise, it spikes. Owners notice fast. A long-term tenant paying predictable rent is safe. A short-term guest paying premium nightly rates can be better, especially where it is legal and practical. Even if you never book a short-term rental, you can still feel its shadow. Fewer long leases, more furnished monthly rentals, landlords preferring flexibility over stability. In the hottest districts, residents describe a new kind of displacement. Not by war, not by disaster, but by convenience. The city becomes a product, and locals become the inconvenience. At the same time, Japan's property market is increasingly attractive to global capital. When new condominiums in central Tokyo average well over 100 million yen, that is unaffordable for a typical household. But to an investment fund, it is an asset class, and to a wealthy foreign buyer, it can look inexpensive compared to other global cities. The result is a market that drifts away from local incomes. It cares what the next bidder will pay. Now add one more trap: aging. Japan's population is shrinking and getting older, which should reduce demand. But in practice, it concentrates demand into the remaining economic hubs. Young workers do not move to the countryside where houses are empty. They move toward the only places with opportunity, and discover that opportunity comes with Tokyo pricing. This is why just move doesn't work. Moving away can mean lower wages, fewer jobs, weaker childcare support, and isolation. Moving closer can mean rent that consumes your future. Either way, the math is cruel. When real wages fall while housing prices surge, the country doesn't just get poorer. It gets emptier in the ways that matter. Fewer families, fewer births, fewer people willing to build a life. Once that feedback loop begins, impossible stops being a metaphor. It becomes the new normal. So what can Japan do? The uncomfortable answer is that there is no single lever that fixes this. Japan must fight on three fronts: incomes, housing supply where people actually live, and the tourism and asset boom reshaping the most desirable neighborhoods. First, wages. Japan is pushing pay upward through annual wage negotiations and minimum wage hikes. In 2025, major unions reported average pay increases above 5% in parts of the economy. Policymakers backed large minimum wage increases, bringing the national average to roughly 1,118 yen per hour. There is also an explicit goal of around 1,500 yen per hour by the end of the decade. That sounds significant, until you realize what it is racing: years of price growth, and rent levels set by one of the world's most expensive urban housing markets. Second, housing. Japan does not need more homes in the abstract. It needs more homes in the right places, faster approvals, and a rental system that rewards long-term stability instead of constant turnover. when the price per square meter in new central Tokyo condominiums is around 1.88 million yen, that is not a normal market. It is a market that assumes wealth. Third, the external bid. Japan cannot and should not shut its doors. Tourism is real income. In 2025, visitor spending reached about 9.5 trillion yen. But every country that becomes a bargain to the world eventually learns the same lesson. If global demand strongly influences local prices, locals can lose their cities. And now, the monetary backdrop is shifting. After years of ultra-low rates, the Bank of Japan has begun moving away from emergency settings. Policy rates reached around 0.75% by late 2025, levels not seen in decades. Higher rates can cool asset prices, but they also raise mortgage costs for anyone still trying to buy. If wages do not rise fast enough, tightening turns the housing ladder into a cliff. This is why living in Japan is starting to feel impossible. You are squeezed by the rent today, the grocery bill tomorrow, and the future you cannot build. You can work full-time, do everything right, and still feel like you are losing.